My wife, Chloe, and I were not exactly resort people. We're more rent a cabin and hike until our legs fall off people. But for our honeymoon, we decided to splurge. We cashed in every credit card point, every saved up vacation dollar, and booked a week at this place. Isla Sombra, they called it. The Shadow Island. Looking back, the name should have been a warning, but at the time, we just thought it sounded exclusive. The journey itself was part of the appeal. A flight, a 2-hour ferry, and then a 45-minute ride in a rusty Jeep over roads that were more like suggestions. The whole point was isolation. A digital detox, the brochure promised. No cell service, no Wi-Fi, no TVs, just us, a private beach, and 10 bungalows spread so far apart you'd never know you had neighbors. We, of course, had booked the best one. Bungalow 10. It was at the absolute end of the winding jungle path, perched on a small cliff overlooking a private cove. It was perfect. The walls were dark, polished wood. The bed was draped in white linen, and the entire ocean-facing wall was just glass doors that opened onto a massive wraparound porch. Mark, my husband, was in heaven. He tossed his dead phone into his suitcase with a declaration of freedom and immediately went to explore the beach. I, however, am a nester. I like to unpack, to put my things in drawers, to make a place mine, even for a week. The bungalow was minimalist, but elegant. A bed, 2 knit stands, a small desk. I was putting my clothes in the antique-looking wooden dresser when I noticed the bottom drawer was stuck. It wasn't locked, just jammed. I gave it a good, hard pull, and it finally came open with a groan of old wood. It was empty, except for one thing, tucked all the way in the back. It was a book. Not a new, shiny, resort-branded book, but an old, leather-bound guest book, the kind with a gold leaf border on the cover. It was heavy, and the pages were thick and yellowed. I smiled. In a place so dedicated to being digital, this felt like a little rebellion. A real physical object. I opened it on the bed. The first entry was from 1994. A perfect paradise. We will be back every year. The water is the bluest we've ever seen. The staff is incredible. 5 stars. The first dozen pages were exactly that. Happy couples, glowing reviews. It was charming. Mark came back in, sandy and sun-kissed, and I read a few of the cheesy ones aloud to him. He laughed, kissed my head, and went to shower. I kept reading. Around page 20, the entries stopped being from the 90s and jumped to the early 2000s, and the tone began to change. The handwriting was still bubbly, but the words were different. A beautiful place. The groundskeeper is very attentive. He's always working, always nearby. I thought that was a bit odd, but I kept going. A few pages later, we had a wonderful stay, but we recommend you keep your porch doors locked, even when you're here. We had a few things go missing from the table. Just small things, a book, some sunglasses. The manager said it was probably the monkeys. I looked around. We hadn't seen any monkeys. I was in the last third of the book now. The entries were more sporadic, one from 2007, another from 2011. The handwriting was no longer neat. It was shaky, rushed. Don't walk on the beach after the sun goes down. Just don't. That one gave me a little chill. I flipped the page. The next entry was just a few words, scrawled in a messy blue pen. He watches from the trees. The man with the rake. He never stops. My heart was starting to thump a little. This was feeling less like a charming antique and more like a warning. I got to the last entry. It was the only one on the page, written in what looked like black marker. The letters were huge, pressing so hard they almost tore the paper. We are in bungalow 10. He is on the porch. He has been standing outside the glass for an hour. He's just staring. I called the front desk and they told me there is nitrogen monoxide 1 working on the paths tonight. They told me I am wrong. I am not wrong. He is raking this sand. There is nitrogen monoxide sand on the porch. He is raking the wood. The sound. Oh God. The sound. I slammed the book shut. My hands were shaking. Mark. He came out of the bathroom, toweling his hair. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I tried to laugh it off. Just some weirdo wrote a really creepy prank in this old guest book. Listen to this. I read the last entry aloud. His face didn't change. He just shrugged. Babe, it's a honeymoon resort. It's probably some frat guys trying to scare the next guest. Come on, let's go get a drink. The sun's setting. He was right, of course. It was absurd. I pushed the book back into the drawer. I didn't want to look at it anymore. And we went to the main lodge. The lodge was beautiful. Open air, music playing, tiki torches lit. We had a couple of strong, fruity cocktails, and I started to relax. The creepy book faded from my mind. As we were walking back to our bungalow in the dark, guided by the little lights along the path, Mark stopped. Listen. I listened. I heard the jungle. Crickets, the rustle of leaves. What? No, listen. And then I heard it. A faint, rhythmic sound. It was coming from the direction of our bungalow. It's just a groundskeeper, I whispered, but the words felt hollow. It was past 10 p.m. Let's check it out, Mark said, his voice a little too brave. We rounded the last bend. The porch of bungalow 10 was lit by a single warm light. And there he was. A man, his back to us, was sweeping the porch with a big straw broom. No, not sweeping. Raking. He had a small metal garden rake, and he was dragging it across the wooden planks of our porch. He was a local older, with a kind, weathered face. He turned as we approached, and his face broke into a huge, warm smile. He had one of those smiles that was all teeth and kindness. Good evening, he said, his voice happy. I am just finishing, making it perfect for you. Mark, relieved, laughed. Oh man, you scared us for a second. We didn't think anyone would be out here. It looks great. The man, who introduced himself as Mateo, just nodded and smiled. Only the best for bungalow 10. It is the most special. You sleep well. He gathered his rake and his bucket, and with another warm nod, disappeared down a small, unmarked path into the jungle. See? Mark said, unlocking our door. Total sweetheart. Not a creepy murderer. I felt so stupid. The man in the book was raking the wood. This man was just cleaning. I had let a stupid prank ruin my first night. The next few days were paradise. We swam, we ate, we slept. We saw Mateo every day. He was always around. In the morning, he'd be raking the sand on our private beach into those perfect sand-like lines. In the afternoon, he'd be trimming the hibiscus bush that framed our porch. He was always smiling, always waving. As the guest book said, very attentive. But I started to notice things. We'd be inside reading and I'd hear the snip, snip, snip of shears right outside our window. I'd look up and he'd be there, his smile never wavering, his eyes locked on the bush. Or maybe on us. One afternoon, I was sunbathing on the porch and I must have dozed off. When I woke up, the sun was lower. I sat up and he was just standing there, at the bottom of the porch steps, motionless. He wasn't raking or trimming. He was just watching me sleep. My heart flew into my throat. Mateo, are you okay? He just smiled. That same wide, kind smile. The sun will be gone soon, ma'am. It gets cool. You should go inside. It was a perfectly normal thing to say. But the way he said it, the fact that he'd been standing there, who knows how long, it chilled me to the bone. I grabbed my towel and hurried inside, locking the glass door behind me. Mark was still down on the beach. I was alone. That night, I told Mark about it. He was finally starting to see that I was genuinely freaked out. Okay, he's a little weird, Mark conceded. Maybe it's a cultural thing? He's just being protective? Tomorrow, I'll go to the front desk. I'll just ask about him. Put your mind at ease. The next day, Mark went to the lodge to book a snorkel trip, which was our code for his real mission. I stayed in the bungalow, too anxious to go with him. I found myself drawn to the dresser. I pulled the drawer. The guest book was gone. I tore the room apart. I checked every drawer, under the bed, in the closet. It was gone. I knew I had put it back in that drawer. I knew it. Mark came back an hour later, his face pale. "You're not going to believe this," he said, sitting on the bed. I couldn't just ask about Mateo. It felt weird. So I started by mentioning the guest book. I asked the manager, a young woman named Elena, if they had any old ones. I said my wife loved that kind of history. He paused, taking a breath. She looked at me like I had 3 heads. She said, "Sir, this resort was completely rebuilt in 2005 after the hurricane. Everything was destroyed. The bungalows, the lodge, everything. We don't have anything from before then." "I don't understand," I said. "That book. The first entry was 1994. "I know," Mark said, his voice low. So I pushed. I said, "Well, that's strange, because our groundskeeper, Mateo, he's a bit odd. He's been bothering my wife. And that's when she got really weird, Sarah." She went all formal. She said, "Sir, I assure you, that's impossible. Our grounds crew works from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. They are not permitted near the bungalows after hours. And we have no one named Mateo on our staff." My blood ran ice cold. "What? But we've seen him. We talked to him. I know." Mark was pacing now. I told her that. I described him. The older guy, the kind smile. And Sarah. She told me to stop. She said I was upsetting her. She said the original groundskeeper of the old resort was named Mateo. She said he was a local legend. He loved the island so much, he never left. He was the only person who died in the hurricane. He refused to evacuate. They say he was last seen trying to rake the beach to make it perfect as the storm surge came in. We just stared at each other. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the distant, gentle waves. "We're leaving," Mark said. "Right now. I'm going to call the ferry. We can't use the phone here. I have to go to the lodge." "No," I screamed. "Don't leave me here alone. Babe, I have to. It's the only way. Lock the door. Lock the windows. I will be back in 10 minutes. I'll run the whole way, there and back." He was right. I was terrified, but he was right. He grabbed the door handle, and that's when it started. The storm. It was instantaneous. It wasn't a build-up. 1 second, it was sunny. The next, the sky opened. The wind howled like a freight train, and rain hit the glass doors so hard it sounded like handfuls of gravel. The lights in the bungalow flickered, and then, with a pathetic little pop, they died. We were plunged into darkness. "Mark!" I shrieked, grabbing his arm. "It's just a squall," he said, his voice shaking. "It'll pass," but it didn't. It got worse. The wind was screaming. And then, Through the roar of the storm, we heard it. A scrape. It was on the porch, right outside the door. "Mark, he's here," I whimpered, backing away from the glass. Mark stood frozen. "It's just the wind. It's a branch scraping the wood." "It's not," I cried. The scraping was getting faster, more frantic. "He's raking," I whispered, the words from the guest book echoing in my head. "He is raking the wood." The sound. Oh God, the sound. "Enough," Mark roared. He was a rational man, and this was breaking him. "I've had enough of this. It's a person. It's some sick employee trying to scare us." He lunged for the door and tore it open. "Get the hell off our porch!" The wind ripped the door from his hand, slamming it against the bungalow wall. Rain and leaves blasted into the room. And there, standing in the middle of the porch, was Matteo. He wasn't smiling. His face was a mask of rage, his eyes black and empty. He was soaking wet, but not from the rain. He was drenched in seawater. Seaweed and sand clung to his old-fashioned uniform. He was holding his little metal rake. Mark just deflated. Oh my God. Matteo looked at Mark. He looked at me, cowering by the bed. He raised the rake, and he smiled. That same wide, kind, terrifying smile. "It must be perfect," he whispered, and his voice was not a voice. It was the sound of the ocean, the sound of grinding sand, the sound of a billion tiny shells breaking. He took a step inside. Mark, bless him, moved. He grabbed the heavy wooden desk chair and hurled it at him. The chair passed right through him and shattered against the porch railing. Matteo just kept walking. "It's not perfect," he hissed, his eyes on me. "You are not perfect." Mark grabbed me. "The bathroom, now!" We scrambled into the small bathroom and slammed the heavy wooden door, fumbling with the lock. We heard him enter the bungalow. The sound wasn't footsteps. It was a wet, heavy dragging, like a body being pulled. And then the scraping. Inside, on the wooden floor, right outside our door. We huddled in the bathtub, Mark's arms around me. We could hear the storm outside and the storm inside. Then a new sound. A thump against the door. He was testing it. "It's not perfect," the watery voice moaned. "Not clean. Not clean." Thud. The door jamb splintered. We stayed in that bathroom until dawn. The scraping, the thudding, it went on for hours. We cried. We prayed. And then, just as the first gray light of morning began to creep under the door, it stopped. The storm was gone. The scraping was gone. It was silent. We waited for another hour. Finally, Mark, his face a gray mask of terror, unlocked the door. The bungalow was pristine. The chair wasn't broken. The bed was made. Our bags were neatly packed and sitting by the door. And the floor, the entire wooden floor, was covered in a thin, perfect layer of damp, white sand. It was raked. In perfect, Zen-like lines. Tucked into the handle of my suitcase was the guest book. We didn't speak. We didn't grab our phones. We left everything. We grabbed the packed bags, stepped over the sand-covered floor, and we ran. We ran all the way to the lodge. We must have looked like lunatics. We burst in, soaking wet from sweat or rain. I don't know, screaming for the manager. Elena, the manager, was there. She took one look at us, at our faces, and her own face went white. "You were in Bungalow 10, she said. It wasn't a question. "Get us off this island," Mark choked out. No, she didn't ask questions. She didn't charge us. She just got on a radio. An emergency boat was there in 20 minutes. As we were walking to the dock, I looked back at the path to Bungalow 10. He was there. at the edge of the jungle, just watching us leave. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't raking. He was just standing there. We never told anyone the full story. Who would believe us? We told our families the weather was awful, and we got sick. But I still have it. The book, it was in my bag. I don't know how. I've tried to throw it away. I've tried to burn it. It always comes back. It's in my attic right now, in a locked chest. Sometimes when the house is quiet, when it's raining, I can hear it. A faint, distant sound from upstairs. Spring break. It's one of those words that just means something different to me now. It used to mean freedom. A week away from midterms, cheap beer, and a car packed with your best friends. Now it just means the beach. And the dark. This was, God, 7 years ago? My sophomore year of college. It was me, my roommate Ben, and our two best friends, Chris and Sam. We did what every broke college kid does. We pooled our money and rented the cheapest, crummiest, most disgusting condo we could find in Panama City. The place was called the Ocean View Tower, which was a joke. It was a massive 20-story block of concrete and misery, set 2 blocks back from the actual ocean. Our view was a dumpster and the parking lot of a rival, much nicer hotel. Our unit, 214, was rough. The carpet was damp. There was a weird, sweet, chemical smell I still can't identify. And the balcony door on the second floor didn't lock. The latch was broken, and the fix was a piece of plywood that you were supposed to wedge in the track. But we were 20. We didn't care. We were on spring break. The first 3 days were a blur. The beach was a sea of people. The nights were a neon-soaked mess. We were living on no sleep and cheap vodka. It was, for a minute, perfect. Then came Thursday night. We'd been at a beach bar, but we got kicked out because Chris, who's a loudmouth when he's drunk, tried to start a "You Saw" chant during the DJ's set. We were walking back along the shore. It was about 2 a.m. The beach, which had been a solid wall of people all day, was empty. Eerily empty. It was dark. Not just nighttime dark, but oppressively dark. The moon was a tiny sliver, and the lights from the hotels seemed to stop at the edge of the sand, like they were afraid to go any further. And of course, Chris gets an idea. Dudes, night swim. I was the responsible one, or at least the most sober one. Chris, no. Look at the signs. No swimming after sunset, high surf, strong rip currents. It's a stupid idea. Oh, come on, Alex, he slurred, pushing me. Don't be a mom. Who's gonna stop us? The sand police? Sam, who was quiet, just shrugged. But Ben was my roommate, my best friend. He was just as drunk as Chris. Yeah, Alex. Come on, when are we gonna get to do this again? I lost the vote. So, there we are. 4 idiots stripping down to our boxers on a pitch-black beach. As we're getting ready to run in, I notice someone. About 50 yards down the beach, just standing at the edge of the surf, was a figure. A man. He was just standing there, ankle deep, staring out at the black water. He was perfectly still. Hey, I said, my voice low. There's a guy down there. Chris, being Chris, cupped his hands. Hey, you forgot your bathing suit. The man didn't move. He didn't turn. He didn't do anything. He's probably just, thinking, Ben said, already jogging toward the water. Weirdo. Let's go. We ran into the surf. The water was shockingly cold. It was colder than it should have been in Florida. It took our breath away. We were splashing, yelling, acting like the morons we were. After a few minutes of goofing off, Ben, who is the Goop's clown, gets this dramatic look on his face. Oh no, the Kraken. It's got me. He thrashes around and pretends to get pulled under. He pops up a second later, laughing. Gotcha. You're an idiot, Ben. I splash water at him. He puts his hands on his hips. You're just mad you fell for? His voice cut off. His eyes went wide. The smile just fell off his face. Ben? I said. Stop. It's not funny anymore. Alex, he whispered. And his voice, I'd never heard him sound like that. It was pure, childlike terror. Alex, something's got my foot. Chris laughed. Yeah, okay, Ben. It's the seaweed monster. I'm not kidding. Ben screamed. It was a sound I will never, ever forget. It wasn't a scared scream. It was a pain scream. It's pulling at me. Alex, and he was gone. He didn't get pulled under. He was yanked. 1 second he was there, and the next, it was just empty water. We were frozen for a second. It was impossible. Ben! I screamed, diving forward into the black water where he'd been. I couldn't see anything. It was like swimming in ink. I was just flailing, my hands hitting nothing but water and sand. My lungs were on fire. He's gone. Oh God, he's gone. And then my hand hit something. An arm. I grabbed it and pulled. I dragged him to the surface. He came up, not swimming, but as dead weight. He was coughing, vomiting seawater, his eyes rolled back. Chris and Sam grabbed him, and we all dragged him out of the water, collapsing onto the wet sand like beached whales. Ben was hysterical. He was sobbing, clutching his ankle. It had me. It had me. It had hands, Alex. It had cold hands. I looked at his ankle. There were marks, not cuts. They were bruises, in the shape of a hand. A long, thin hand. We have to go. Sam was stammering, pulling on his shorts. We have to go now. We were all getting up, still dazed, still terrified. And that's when I remembered. The man on the beach. I looked down the 50 yards of sand. He was still there, but he wasn't facing the ocean anymore. He was facing us. We all just stopped. We stared at him. He was a perfect silhouette against the almost non-existent light. And then, very slowly, he raised his arm. And he waved. It wasn't a hello wave. It wasn't a do you need help wave. It was a slow, deliberate, I see you wave. A good job wave. We didn't scream. We didn't talk. We just ran. We left our shirts, our wallets, our dignity. We ran. We sprinted across the sand, over the dunes, across the street, not even looking for cars. We burst into the lobby of our building, soaking wet in our boxers, and piled into the elevator, jabbing the 2 button. We got into our room, 214. Chris, in his panic, slammed the door so hard it bounced open. Sam threw his whole body against it and fumbled with the deadbolt. The balcony, I gasped. The balcony door. I ran to it. The piece of plywood we used as a lock was on the floor. The door was wide open. The cheap vinyl curtain was blowing in the breeze. I locked it, Sam stammered. I swear I did. I put the wood in. I always put the wood in. He must have just forgot, Chris said, but he was looking at Sam, and Sam was white as a ghost. I slammed the door shut and jammed the plywood into the track. I pushed the armchair, the one with the cigarette burn, in front of it. For the rest of the night, we didn't sleep. We sat on the floor, in the dark. We didn't even turn the lights on. Ben just sat in the corner, wrapped in a comforter, shaking. He kept whispering, "It had hands. It had hands." We tried to rationalize it. "It was a rip current," I said, mostly to myself. "It just felt like hands." And the guy on the beach, he was just a drunk, a creep. He was just waving. And the balcony door? Sam whispered. "The wind," Chris said too quickly. "The wind blew it open. The wood fell. That's all." We repeated these things to each other, over and over, until they started to sound almost true. By the time the sun came up, we had convinced ourselves it was just a combination of booze, panic, and a rogue current. We packed our stuff. We didn't even check out. We just left. We threw our bags in the car and drove 12 hours straight back to campus, the entire car ride in almost total silence. Ben's ankle was a deep, mottled purple, the bruises a perfect ring, just like he'd said. He told everyone he'd sprained it falling down the stairs. And that should have been the end of it. It should have been the crazy spring break story we told for years, getting more and more exaggerated. But it wasn't. About a month later, we were back at school. Midterms were done. It was a Tuesday. I was in my dorm room. Ben was at the library. It was late, maybe 1 a.m. I was trying to finish a paper. My room was on the 3rd floor of my dorm. It had a small, purely decorative balcony. You couldn't even stand on it. It was just a concrete ledge, a foot wide, part of the building's facade. I was falling asleep at my desk when I heard it. I ignored it. It was an old building. It was probably a branch from a tree that wasn't there. It was on the glass. My balcony door. My blood didn't just run cold. It evaporated. It was impossible. I was on the 3rd floor. There was no fire escape. There was no way for anyone to be out there. "It's a bird," I told myself. A bird hit the window. It was the sound of a fingernail dragging down the glass. I didn't want to look. I have never, in my life, wanted to not look at something more. My body was screaming at me. "Run, don't look, get out," but I had to. I had to know. I stood up. My legs felt like they were full of wet cement. I walked to the window. The blinds were closed. I took a breath, and I pulled the cord. The blinds rattled up. At first, I saw nothing, just the reflection of my own terrified face in the glass. "See? Nothing." "You're crazy, Alex. You're..." And then a shadow detached itself from the corner of the wall. It was him, the man from the beach. He was on the ledge, crouching like a spider. He was soaking wet. Water was dripping from his clothes. They weren't clothes. They were rags, old, tattered. His skin was wrong. It was pale, puffy, like something that had been in the water for a very, very long time. He smiled. His teeth were. They looked like broken shells. He raised his hand, that long, thin, bruised hand, and he tapped the glass again. A tap, and then he mouthed a word. I could see it. He wasn't saying more. He was saying, "Ben." He was asking for Ben. He had followed us from Florida. He had found us. I screamed. I don't think I've ever screamed like that. I fell backwards, pulling my desk lamp down. By the time my REA and half the floor had burst into my room, he was gone. There was nothing on the balcony, except a small puddle of seawater and a single strand of dark, wet seaweed. Ben and I moved out of that dorm the next day. We slept on Sam's floor for the rest of the semester. I never told Ben what I saw. I couldn't. How do you tell your best friend that something followed him home from the ocean? I don't go near the beach anymore. I don't even like swimming pools. And sometimes, late at night, when it's raining, I think I can hear it outside my window. You know, the worst part of my job isn't the deadlines. It's not the demanding clients. It's the hotels. I'm a consultant, a solutions-oriented one, which is just a fancy way of saying I fly to sad cities and live in beige rooms for 3 days at a time, telling a company what they already know. This particular trip was to, well, it doesn't matter. It was one of those mid-sized, up-and-coming cities. The kind with one new stadium and a lot of old, sad buildings. My company had booked me into the Grand. It was grand in maybe 1982. Now, it was just old. The carpets were a swirling nightmare of maroon and gold. The air smelled like stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner. The lobby was a zoo. There was some kind of pharmaceutical convention. Hundreds of people in matching. Blue lanyards, all looking stressed and over-caffeinated. The line to check in was a mile long. I finally get my key. Room 420. I thought, great. Funny, I was just so tired. The elevator ride up was an experience. It was me and 3 pharma guys who were loudly complaining about their per diems. The elevator itself creaked. It groaned. When it finally dinged on the 4th floor, I practically ran out. The hallway was a tunnel, low ceiling, that same awful carpet. The lights were that dim, yellow kind that make everyone look sick. I get to my room, 420. I'm juggling my laptop bag, my suitcase, the little cardboard key. I swipe, red light. I sigh. I swipe again, red. I'm getting ready to curse, to just lay my head against the door and give up, when the door next to mine, room 418, cracks open. Just an inch, a line of darkness. Hello? I say, because what else do you say? A man's eye appears in the crack. It's bloodshot, darting. Are you with them? He whispers. His voice is jagged, like broken glass. I'm sorry? I say, taking a step back. I'm just trying to get into my room. 420. My key's not working. The door opens a little wider. I can see him now. He's a wreck. He's in a nice suit, but it's wrinkled, like he's slept in it. His tie is loose. His hair is matted, like he's been pulling at it. You can't, he whispers, frantic. You can't stay here. Not next to me. They're listening. Okay, so this is my life. I'm stuck in a hallway with a crazy person. Sir, I don't know what you're talking about, I say, trying to be polite, trying to edge away. The calls, he hisses, and he's so intense, spit flies from his mouth. They keep calling my room, but they don't say anything. They just breathe. They just gulp, like they're drinking something. I am so done. This is too much. Sir, I think you should call security. His face crumpled. No security. That's who sent them. They know I have it. They know I'm going to talk. Have what? He looks down the empty hallway, his eyes wide with paranoia. He looks back at me. The data. It proves. It proves. He's cut off by the sound of the elevator dinging at the end of the hall. He slams the door. I hear the heavy chunk of the deadbolt sliding into place. I'm left standing there. My heart is hammering. I am not going back to the lobby. I'm not. I take my key. I swipe it one more time with all my frustrated, terrified energy. A beep green. The door clicks open. I have never been so happy to see a beige hotel room in my life. I throw my bags in. I slam the door. I deadbolt it. I put the little swing latch on. I am not that guy. I am safe. I collapse onto the bed. The comforter smells like bleach. I just need to decompress. I order room service, a club sandwich, the most normal thing I can think of. As I'm waiting, I look around. It's a room, bed, desk, TV, and an adjoining door. Right next to my bed, a white wooden door, connecting my room, 420, to his room, 418. I get up. I walk over to it. It's locked. It has a deadbolt on my side. I check it. It's solid. I still don't like it. I take my suitcase, the heavy one, and I wedge it under the handle. Just in case. I'm being ridiculous. The guy is drunk. He's on something. He's just a convention goer who's had a breakdown. My room service arrives. I eat the club sandwich. It's a sandwich. I'm starting to feel normal, human. The guy in 418 is just a weird story. I'm getting ready for bed. I've got my work pajamas on. I'm washing my face, and the phone rings. It's that old, loud ring. That jarring, ancient hotel phone sound. It's 11:30 at night. My heart stops. It's probably the front desk. My wake-up call wrong. I walk over. I pick up the receiver. Hello? Silence. But not a dead silence. It's an open line silence. I can hear air, like the air of another room. Hello. I say again, my voice shaking, and then I hear it. A gulp. It's a wet, swallowing sound. A thick, viscous gargle. And then a click. They hung up. I'm frozen. I slam the phone down. I'm pissed. This isn't funny. This maniac in 418, he's harassing me. He's probably found a way to dial room to room. I grab the phone. I dial 0. Front desk, a tired voice answers. Hi, I say, trying to keep my voice even. This is Megan, in room 420. The guest in 418. He's calling my room. He's harassing me. There's a pause. The click, click, click of a keyboard. Ma'am? The voice says. Room 420? Yes. Ma'am, I don't know how that's possible. We've been having switchboard issues on the entire 4th floor. It's an old system. No one can make calls to the rooms right now. Only out. My blood it turned to ice. What? Yeah, it's a pain, the clerk says, oblivious. The technicians are coming tomorrow. No external calls or room-to-room calls can get in. Your phone can ring, but it's just the system. It's a glitch. It's not a person. I promise. I hang up. I don't even say goodbye. I'm staring at the phone. It's a glitch. It's not a person. But I heard it. I heard the gulp, like they're drinking something. The man's words. And a horrible, cold realization sinks into my stomach. If the call didn't come from the front desk, and it didn't come from another room, where did it come from? I'm standing in the total silence of the room, and I hear it. It's quiet. So quiet, I think I'm imagining it. It's not coming from the phone. It's coming from the wall. I slowly turn my head. I look at the adjoining door. The door to 418. It's louder now. It's right there. On the other side of that thin, white door. The man in 418. He wasn't paranoid. He wasn't drunk. He said they were listening. He said they were calling. He didn't mean they were calling his phone. The hotel's wiring is old. The phones are all connected. He was hearing, I am hearing, what's happening in another room. No, not just any room. My room. The thought hits me like a physical blow. The call, the breathing, the gulping. It wasn't a call to my room. It was something, picking up the phone in my room, listening to me, and then hanging up. I'm not alone. I backed away from the adjoining door. My eyes are glued to it. I must have made a sound. A gasp, a whimper, because the gulping had stopped. The silence that followed was 1,000 times worse. It was thick, heavy. Listening. I'm standing by the bed, my hand over my mouth, not daring to breathe. My eyes are screaming. My skin is crawling. Move. Run. Get out. But I'm paralyzed. I'm just staring at the deadbolt on the adjoining door, the one I locked. And then I hear it. It's a small metallic sound. A tumbler. It's coming from the other side of the door. The deadbolt. The deadbolt on his side of the door. The one the terrified man, the man who knew, had locked. It's being unlocked. Someone or something is in room 418. They're done with him, and now they're coming for me. The handle on the adjoining door. The handle that my suitcase is wedged under. It's starting to turn. And that's all for tonight. Remember, the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us. The ones who might even live right next door. If these stories serve as a good reminder to trust your instincts, then show your support and like and subscribe. Hitting that bell means you'll get a warning before the next nightmare begins. Sleep well if you can.